There is a bean growing wild across the tropics that produces the exact same drug sold in every pharmacy on Earth for Parkinson's disease. Not a similar compound, not a derivative, the exact same molecule, levodopa, the gold standard treatment for the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the world, the molecule that the brain converts directly into dopamine, the neurotransmitter that Parkinson's patients are losing every single day. A single seed of this bean contains between 4 and 7% levodopa by dry weight. You cannot patent it. You cannot restrict its growth. It climbs fences, wraps around trees, and drops pods filled with a pharmaceutical molecule that costs patients up to $300 a month in prescription form. For 3,500 years, physicians in India prescribed this bean for tremors, rigidity, and loss of movement. They did not know about dopamine. They did not have MRI machines or clinical trials or pharmaceutical regulatory agencies. They watched patients stop shaking. They called the condition Campavata, a tremor disease described with such clinical precision that modern neurologists reading the ancient texts can match the symptoms to Parkinson's point by point. They called the bean Atma Gupta. The name translates to the secret self, as though the ancient physicians understood that the cure was hidden inside a pod so irritating it stings bears anyone who touches it bare-handed. The secret was levodopa, the direct precursor to dopamine, hiding inside velvet-covered pods for millennia, waiting for Western science to catch up. It took until 2004 for a double-blind clinical trial at one of the most prestigious neurology hospitals in the world to confirm what Ayurvedic physicians had documented 35 centuries earlier. The bean worked. It worked faster than the prescription drug. It worked longer. It produced fewer side effects, and the pharmaceutical industry had no way to sell it. This is the story of Mucuna pruriens, the velvet bean, and the $7 billion industry that needs you to never learn its name. The earliest known medical system to describe what we now call Parkinson's disease was not European. It was Indian. The Charaka Samhita, one of the foundational texts of Ayurvedic medicine composed during the Vedic period between 1500 BC and 1000 BC, describes a neurological condition called Campavata. The symptoms are unmistakable to any modern neurologist. Tremors, muscle rigidity, difficulty initiating movement, excessive salivation, a fixed, unblinking stare, slowness that worsens over time, drooling, somnolence. This is Parkinson's disease, described with clinical specificity more than 3,000 years before James Parkinson published his famous 1817 essay in London. The treatment prescribed in the Charaka Samhita was a preparation of Mucuna prurien seeds, ground into powder and mixed with warm milk, alongside complementary herbs like Withania somnifera and Cedar cordifolia. The Sushruta Samhita, another cornerstone text from the same period, classified the plant among herbs that promote strength, nourish the nervous system, and restore vitality. These were not vague folk references buried in mysticism. They were therapeutic protocols with specific preparation methods, dosage guidance, and expected outcomes, documented across independent medical traditions spanning centuries. The bean was also prescribed as one of the most potent aphrodisiacs in Ayurvedic pharmacology, used to treat male infertility and restore what the texts called vital energy. Modern fertility research would vindicate that claim with staggering precision. The plant itself is remarkable. Mucuna pruriens is a vigorous climbing legume that reaches 50 feet in height, producing clusters of purple or white flowers and curved S-shaped pods covered in fine barbed hairs that cause intense stinging irritation on contact. Those hairs contain serotonin and the protein mucunine, a defense mechanism so effective that the plant evolved chemical warfare to guard what is inside. The seeds behind that defense contain a pharmacological payload unlike anything else in the plant kingdom. Levodopa constitutes 4 to 7% of the seed's dry weight, making Mucuna the richest known natural source of the compound on Earth. But levodopa is not alone. The seeds contain more than 40 identified bioactive compounds including serotonin, nicotine, and trace alkaloids. The plant fixes nitrogen in the soil, grows in degraded land without fertilizer or irrigation, and produces viable seeds within a single growing season across tropical Africa, India, Central and South America, and Southeast Asia. In Guatemala and Mexico, communities have roasted and ground mucuna seeds as a coffee substitute for generations. They call it Nescafe. In parts of the eastern Himalayas, both the green pods and mature beans were boiled and eaten as a vegetable through the 18th and 19th centuries. A South Indian hill tribe known as the Kani traditionally consumed the beans after repeated boiling. The plant was food, medicine, soil restoration, and pest control in a single organism. And then, it was forgotten. In 1937, Indian biochemists Mahadeva Damodaran and R. Ramaswamy isolated levodopa from Mucuna pruriens seeds at the University of Madras and published their findings in the Biochemistry Journal. The discovery was ignored. Levodopa was classified as a biologically inactive amino acid. Not useful, not interesting, not profitable. For 30 years it gathered dust in the scientific literature, while millions of Parkinson's patients had virtually no effective treatment. A drug screen conducted in the early 1970s confirmed that multiple species of mucuna contained 4 to 6% levodopa, with Mucuna pruriens consistently yielding the highest concentrations. The data was available, the molecule was identified, the source was abundant, but the pharmaceutical industry was already moving in a different direction. In 1967, George Kotzias demonstrated that high-dose oral synthetic levodopa could dramatically reverse the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and the molecule went from biological curiosity to neurological revolution. Overnight, companies raced to synthesize levodopa, combine it with carbidopa to prevent premature breakdown in the gut, patent their delivery formulations, and bring branded drugs to market. By the 1970s, Sinemet became the global standard of care. Nobody looked back at the bean. The plant that had been delivering the exact same molecule for millennia was reclassified as a tropical legume of minor agricultural interest. The ancient medical system that identified its neurological effects 3,000 years earlier was filed under folklore, but the data refused to stay buried. In 2004, neurologist Regina Katzenschlager and a team at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery in London published results that should have changed the standard of care. It was a double-blind randomized controlled crossover trial comparing Mucuna pruriens seed powder directly against standard pharmaceutical carbidopa levodopa in 8 Parkinson's disease patients with motor fluctuations and dyskinesias. Patients received either 200 milligrams of pharmaceutical levodopa with 50 milligrams of carbidopa or 30 grams of Mucuna pruriens seed powder in randomized order at weekly intervals. Neither the patients nor the evaluating clinicians knew which treatment was being given. The results were published in the Journal of Neurology, Neurosurgery and Psychiatry. The Mucuna preparation produced a faster onset of effect, not marginally faster. Patients reached therapeutic response in 34.6 minutes with Mucuna versus 68.5 minutes on the prescription drug. The on time, the window during which patients could move normally, lasted 21.9% longer, with Mucuna an additional 37 minutes of functional mobility per dose. Peak levodopa plasma concentrations were 110% higher. Total drug exposure measured by area under the curve was 165% greater. And the involuntary movements called dyskinesias, the debilitating side effects that erode quality of life for millions of patients on long-term levodopa therapy, showed no significant increase with Mucuna. Faster onset, longer duration, higher bioavailability, no additional side effects. This was not a supplement performing comparably to a drug. This was a bean outperforming the pharmaceutical treatment in a controlled clinical environment at one of the most respected hospitals in the world. In 2017, Roberto Cilia and colleagues at the Parkinson Institute in Milan replicated the findings in 18 patients using roasted Mucuna pruriens seed powder prepared without any pharmacological processing, confirming comparable motor improvements with fewer adverse events. 2 independent research teams, 2 peer-reviewed publications, 13 years apart, both confirming what the Karaka Samhita recorded 3,000 years ago. But it gets stranger. Mucuna pruriens is not just a levodopa delivery vehicle. The whole seed contains compounds that appear to work synergistically in ways isolated levodopa cannot replicate. Researchers at CSM Medical University in Lucknow found that 5 grams of Mucuna seed powder, taken daily for 3 months by infertile men under psychological stress, produced transformations in the hormonal architecture of the male reproductive system. Sperm concentration increased by 688% in oligospermic patients. Testosterone levels rose significantly. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, dropped. Dopamine and noradrenaline levels in both blood and seminal plasma increased. Luteinizing hormone recovered. These were not marginal improvements measured with statistical squinting. These were dramatic clinical reversals from 5 grams of seed powder per day. Studies from India, Brazil, Japan, and Thailand confirmed overlapping results across different populations and study designs. At Oregon Health and Science University, researchers removed nearly all the levodopa from a Mucuna extract and tested the remaining compounds in cellular and animal models of Parkinson's disease. The extract depleted of levodopa still reduced reactive oxygen species by up to 61%, protected mitochondrial membranes, and prevented the neuronal death that drives disease progression. The whole bean outperformed isolated levodopa in multiple models. The pharmaceutical pill contains one molecule extracted from this seed and synthesized in a factory. The bean contains that molecule plus dozens of compounds that protect it, enhance it, and buffer its side effects. This is not a cheaper version of the drug. It is the original source that the drug was extracted from and sold back stripped of its most protective elements. So why is Mucuna pruriens not in every pharmacy in the world? Why do more than 10 million people with Parkinson's disease take a synthetic version of molecule that grows on a vine? The global Parkinson's disease drug market was valued at $7 billion in 2025 and is projected to exceed $13 billion by 2034. Levodopa-carbidopa formulations command more than 50% of that revenue. Brand name Cinemet costs over $130 per 100 tablets. Rytary, the extended-release capsule, costs more than $320 per 100 tablets. The total economic burden of Parkinson's disease in the United States alone reaches $52 billion annually. Every dollar of that market depends on one structural condition. The molecule reaching the patient must travel through a patented formulation, a licensed manufacturer, a regulated supply chain, and a pharmacy counter. Mucuna pruriens breaks every link in that chain. You cannot patent a bean, you cannot patent a molecule isolated from that bean in 1937 and published in the open literature. You cannot create market exclusivity around a plant that grows spontaneously in every tropical zone on Earth. Any supplement manufacturer, any farmer, any person with access to tropical soil can produce it. There is no intellectual property to protect. There is no return on investment for any company funding large-scale trials, because the moment results publish, the competition is a seed packet that costs pennies. The regulatory architecture completes the erasure. The FDA classifies Mucuna pruriens as a dietary supplement. It cannot legally be marketed as a treatment for Parkinson's disease, regardless of how many peer-reviewed clinical trials demonstrate efficacy. Supplement manufacturers who sell Mucuna pruriens capsules cannot state on their labels that the product treats tremors or improves motor function, even though 2 randomized controlled trials showed exactly that. Synthetic levodopa in a branded pill is medicine. The same levodopa in a tropical bean is a supplement with no approved claims. Doctors are trained on pharmaceutical protocols. Medical schools do not teach Mucuna pruriens. Neurology residencies do not discuss the Caraca samhita. The suppression is not a conspiracy in a boardroom. It is a structure built from economic incentives, regulatory classifications, and educational pipelines designed to reward patentable molecules and render invisible the ones that cannot be owned. Ancient wisdom was erased not because it failed, but because it succeeded without enabling profit extraction. The human cost is staggering. In rural sub-Saharan Africa, an estimated 15% of Parkinson's patients have access to levodopa. The drug exists, the disease exists, the patients cannot reach the supply chain. Meanwhile, Mucuna pruriens grows wild across West Africa. Researchers conducted a 2017 trial in Ghana because they understood that the crisis was economic. Roasted Mucuna seed powder, prepared with no pharmaceutical processing, produced clinical effects. The method required no laboratory, no cold chain, no import license. Seeds, heat, a grinder. That is the infrastructure standing between a patient in rural Ghana and the same molecule sold for hundreds of dollars in an American pharmacy. But the velvet bean survives. Ayurvedic practitioners in India never stopped prescribing it. Farmers across Central America still roast the seeds as a coffee substitute. Communities in Nigeria, Indonesia, and the Caribbean grow it as a cover crop that restores depleted soil while producing a seed that contains a neurotransmitter precursor, a fertility enhancer, and a neuroprotective compound in a single pod. The knowledge never disappeared. It was reclassified. In the United States, Mucuna pruriens seed powder is legally available as a dietary supplement, sold online, with a month's supply costing under $15. The research accumulates in peer-reviewed journals across 4 continents. What Ayurvedic physicians documented in 1500 BC, what early researchers proved in 1937, what trials confirmed in 2004, and what was validated in 2017 cannot be unlearned. The molecule is in the bean is in the ground does not charge a licensing fee. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video and make sure to hit subscribe.